Welcome back. So now we're going to move on to trinomials, still three terms, but where the coefficient on the x squared is not the invisible 1. So we're talking about what do you do if you don't have a 1 in front of the x squared? You've got something else. And here's an example. 3x squared on the front end, so the coefficient on the x squared is not the invisible 1. There's two methods for dealing with these, so we'll just, go one method at a time. The first method I'm going to show you is called trial and check. It used to be called trial and error. I think people decided that trial and check sounded more cheerful and positive than trial and error. Anyway, in trial and check, you once again start out making parentheses, but you're not sure what should go in them, so you have to make a guess. Basically, that's what a trial is. It means this is really a guess and check method. So you make a guess and then check. Now you're going to make an educated guess, though. You're not just going to write stuff down randomly. So when I go to make my parentheses, to have a 3x squared on the front end, I'm going to have a 3x and an x. If I have any other coefficients on the x's, I'm not going to get 3x squared when I multiply it out. And then, so I'm going to make sure that the front end comes out right, and then I'm also going to make sure the back end comes out right by putting in two numbers that would multiply to give me positive 4. Now there's actually four ways that could happen. Again, there's only one way to get the front end right. I have to have 3x and an x. But to get the back end right, I could have a 4 and a 1, or I could have a 1 and a 4. Those will give me different middle terms. In both cases, I'll still have 3x squared on the front end and 4 on the back end. 3x squared on the front end and 4 on the back end, but I'll get different middle terms. And also, another way of getting a 4 would be to have a 2 and a 2. And, well, if I write plus 2, again, that's exactly the same thing, so I lied. There's only 3 possibilities. Okay, so these are our educated guesses. They're guesses, but they're set up in such a way I know when I multiply them out, I'll have a 3x squared on the front end and a 4 on the back end. The question is, what will I have in the middle? So they'll each give me a different middle term, and I need to make sure that I pick the one that gives me the correct middle term. Okay, so if I FOIL this out, I'll have the inner terms are going to give me a 4x. The outer terms are going to give me a 3x, right? Those two. And the middle term would be a 7x then. If when you combine them, you'll get a 7x. That's not what we want here. We want a 13x. So why don't we try this next one? So this time the inner terms would give me 1x. The outer terms are going to give me 12x, okay, giving me a middle term of 13x. That's the one I want. That's the one that matches with this. So this is my answer. Once I find the answer, personally I stop. I don't go checking the next one, but I'll just point out in case you did things in a different order than I did, if you ran into this problem. Here the inner terms would give you 2x. Here the outer terms would give you 6x. Those would combine to be 8x. So again, that's not the one you want. But I already knew that because once you found the one you want, that's the one you want. Okay, so our answer, our multiplication problem, that is what would give you this polynomial, our answer is 3x plus 1, x plus 4. Now, built into this trial and check method is really your check of your answer. But especially if I was taking a test or a quiz, I certainly would not leave early without doing a more formal check of my answer, just in case something went wrong somewhere. So I would actually, again, this would be sort of at the end if I had time. If I had extra time at the end of the test, I would go ahead and go back through and do extra checking. So 3x squared plus 12x plus 1x plus 4 gives me 3x squared. plus 13x plus 4. And yes, that's what I was supposed to have, so my answer checks out. Okay, let's try another one. Let's factor 8x squared plus 9x plus 1. So to decide what factoring technique we're going to learn, because we're starting to build up kind of quite a library of factoring techniques, I first noticed that I have 3 terms, so I'm factoring a trinomial. The coefficient on the x squared is not 1, so I can make parentheses, but I don't know exactly what to put in them. I'm going to have to make some educated guesses and then check my guesses to see which one's the right one. Okay, so to get an 8x squared on the front end, I could have an 8x and an x, starting out my parentheses, or I could have a 4x and a 2x, and I think those are the only ways to get an 8x squared. To get a plus 1 on the back end, well, there's only one way to multiply and get a 1. That's plus 1 plus 1. Maybe I should mention that you could get the plus 1 on the back end by having a minus 1 and a minus 1, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute, but you're not going to have minuses in your factorization if everything is positive in your original problem. So I'm not going to bother with that one. And similarly down here, technically, I could possibly have a minus 1, that would give me a plus 1, but again, when your original problem is all positives, you're not going to have any minuses in your factors. All right, so let's check the middle terms. Again, we've set these up in such a way that we'll get the right front end, we'll get 8x squared, and we'll get a 1 on the back end. The question is, which one will give us 9x in the middle? So for this one, when I FOIL, my inner terms will give me 1x, my outer terms will give me 8x, those combine to be 9x, and that's the one I want, so that's my answer. I'm going to stop there and say, okay, I know the answer. It is 8x squared plus, oops, that was the problem, not the answer. The answer is 8x plus 1 times x plus 1. And there's a little check built in here, but if I had time left over at the end of an exam, I would double check. I would actually FOIL this out. Let's see, I get 8x squared plus 8x plus x plus 1, and yep, sure enough, that gives me 8x squared plus 9x plus 1, which is what I want. And at this point, it is your turn. I'm giving you, how many trinomials have I given you? 1, 2, 3, 3 trinomials. Each one of them has the coefficient on the x squared being not the positive, not the 1 exponent, the invisible 1 exponent. So you'll need to use, please use trial and check. Even if you know another method, I'd like you to practice with the trial and check method on these. So I'll leave you there and do these before you watch the next video. I will go over them for you in the next video. So see you then.